This guy, Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer, led 210 of his men into a battle that literally none of them survived. It was a shocking defeat that became an American legend, but this wasn't just bad luck. It was all because he made one of the biggest gambles in history. Custer ignored direct warnings from his own scouts and made a series of insane mistakes that led his men straight into a trap with zero escape. Today, we're breaking down exactly how one man's massive ego and crazy tactical blunders turned a planned attack into one of the most legendary last stands ever. To understand this insane battle, we have to go back a few years. The US government signed a treaty creating the Great Sioux Reservation, a huge piece of land that included the sacred Black Hills, set aside for the absolute and undisturbed use of the Lakota tribes. For a second, it looked like there might be peace, but that peace was fake. In 1874, an expedition led by Custer himself marched into the Black Hills, completely violating the treaty. They were supposedly looking for a place to build a fort, but what they really found was gold. The news went viral, and thousands of miners swarmed the land, completely ignoring the treaty. Instead of kicking them out, the government tried to buy the Black Hills. The Lakota, who considered the land sacred, said no way. So the government switched tactics. In the winter of 1875, they issued this impossible ultimatum. All Lakota and Cheyenne had to get to their designated reservation land by January 31, 1876, or they would be declared hostile. That is an insane demand. Traveling in the dead of winter on the Great Plains was incredibly dangerous. When the deadline passed, the army was sent in. The stage was set for war. The US Army's top general came up with a massive plan to corner the hostile tribes and force them onto the reservations. It was a giant, three-pronged trap. One army would come from the west, another huge force would come from the south, and from the east, an army would come that included Custer and his 7th Cavalry. The plan was for all three armies to meet and trap the Lakota and Cheyenne between them. The general believed their escape would be virtually impossible. It was a strategy based on overwhelming force, designed to end the fight fast. And Custer's team was supposed to be the tip of the spear, fast, strong, and ready to fight. Their job was to find the native camp and stop them from escaping. The entire plan depended on two things: coordination and patience. And Custer had zero patience. On June 22, 1876, General Terry gave Custer his orders, and they were super clear. If Custer found the village, he was not supposed to attack. He was supposed to keep going south to block any escape, then meet up with the main army. The big coordinated attack was planned for a few days later. Custer pushed his men hard. On June 25th, his scouts got to a high lookout point called the Crow's Nest, and what they saw was insane. Miles away, they saw smoke from the biggest village they had ever seen. His own scouts were shocked. They warned him that attacking a force that huge would be suicide. The number of horses and the smoke pointed to a village with thousands of people and over 1,500 warriors. One scout told him straight up, "You have seen their smoke, but you do not see their spears." But Custer literally didn't believe them. He climbed the lookout but said he couldn't see the village. He thought they were just scared. He truly believed his 7th Cavalry could defeat anyone. This was a huge miscalculation born from pure ego and underestimating his enemy. Custer's first plan was to hide his men all day and launch a surprise attack at dawn the next day. This would have given the other armies time to get into position. But that morning, everything changed. Scouts ran back and told him they'd been spotted by a small group of warriors. Their cover was blown. Custer's presence was no longer a secret. And this is the moment Custer makes his final insane gamble. He has one single fear: that the village, knowing he was there, would pack up and run away. If the village scattered, his chance for a massive career-making victory would be gone. Torn between waiting for backup and losing his prize, Custer threw the entire coordinated plan in the trash. He chose speed over safety. He made the decision to attack immediately. The 7th Cavalry wasn't going to be part of a trap. They were going in alone, and they were going in now. If attacking alone wasn't bad enough, Custer then makes one of the dumbest mistakes in military history. He splits his army into 3 separate groups. He gives his second-in-command, Major Reno, about 140 men and orders him to charge the village, promising the whole outfit would support him. He gives Captain Benteen another group and sends them on a random chase to the south and west to catch anyone escaping. Custer kept the largest group for himself, about 210 men. He even left a 4th group behind to guard the slow pack train with all the extra ammo. Custer was probably trying a hammer and anvil attack, but this was a fatal mistake. He had no idea how big the village was. He just broke the #1 rule of war. Never split your force when the enemy is bigger than you. And he had no idea how much bigger they were. So Reno charges in with just 140 guys, and for a split second it looks like it's working. But then hundreds of warriors, led by the legendary Chief Gall, come pouring out of the village. Reno later said it was like the ground itself was spitting out warriors. Realizing he was outnumbered at least 5-1, Reno ordered his men to stop and form a battle line. The line only held for a few minutes before they were surrounded. Reno's men fell back into some trees, but the attack was relentless. At one point, Custer's favorite scout was shot in the head right next to Reno, splattering him with blood. Reno panicked and ordered a retreat. And when I say retreat, I mean they ran for their lives. It was total chaos. Troopers were shot at point-blank range as they fled. He lost nearly a third of his men just trying to get away. Custer's hammer was completely smashed. Meanwhile, Captain Benteen is on a totally pointless mission miles away. He finds nothing and turns back. Then a messenger gallops up with this scribbled, panicked note from Custer. It's Custer's last ever order, and it basically just says, "Come on, big village, be quick, bring packs." Benteen raced to help, but before he could reach Custer, he ran into the terrified survivors of Reno's group. Soon, the pack train with the extra ammo showed up. They could all hear insane gunfire coming from where Custer was fighting. A captain tried to lead a charge to help, but they were met by hundreds of warriors and forced back. Now, the rest of Custer's army is trapped on a hill, fighting for their own lives. They literally can't help Custer. Since literally no one in Custer's group survived, we only know what happened next from native accounts and battlefield archaeology. After sending Reno in, Custer rode north, looking for a spot to attack the village from another side. He was shadowed the whole way. When Reno's attack failed, warriors swarmed north. They were joined by a massive force led by war legends like Crazy Horse and Two Moons, who cut Custer off. Instead of attacking the village attacked him. He was trapped on a hill, surrounded on all sides by a vastly superior force. The fight was a complete breakdown. Companies were cut off from each other. Their horses were shot, so they had to fight on foot. Some accounts say Crazy Horse himself led a charge that shattered their lines. The last of the command, including Custer, his two brothers, and his nephew, made their final stand on a small hill. Surrounded, with no hope and low on ammo, the last 40 or so men were wiped out in a final furious assault. In less than an hour, it was all over. George Armstrong Custer and all 210 men under his direct command were dead. For 2 more days, the survivors with Reno and Benteen were stuck on that hill under siege. On the evening of the 26th, the giant village just packed up and left. The next day, the backup armies finally arrived. They found Reno's beaten survivors and then made the horrific discovery on the ridge. It was pure carnage. The bodies of Custer and his men were scattered everywhere. When news of this got back east, just as America was celebrating its 100th birthday, the country freaked out. Headlines screamed of a massacre. How could a hero like Custer and his famous 7th Cavalry be completely wiped out? The public was furious, and it led to an even more relentless campaign against the Plains tribes. So even though the Lakota and Cheyenne won this incredible victory, it was actually the beginning of the end for them. Within a year, most were forced to surrender, and the US government illegally seized the Black Hills. The Battle of the Little Bighorn wasn't destiny. It was the direct result of one man's unbelievable gamble. Let's recap this epic fail. 1. He completely ignored his own expert scouts. 2. He threw away the entire army's plan just so he could get all the glory. And 3. He broke the #1 rule of war and split his tiny army against a giant enemy. Custer gambled that his luck and reputation would be enough to win, just like they always had. He bet everything on one quick strike, and he lost it all. The battle that shocked America became a permanent cautionary tale, a story of a massive ego, a catastrophic misjudgment, and a turning point in the American West. And now he's a legend, not for the win he wanted, but for one of the most stunning defeats in US military history. What do you think was Custer's single biggest mistake? Was it his ego? Splitting his men? Let us know your theory in the comments below. And if you want more breakdowns of history's most insane battles, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching.